When I was a little girl, I was 7 and my parents got married. So my mom remarried. My stepdad became my Don. I never did call him dad. He was Don. So it was mom and Don because it was D word. It always worked for me. And that first winter, so we were shopping for a winter coat. So it had to have been late in the fall in the Midwest. I remember a standoff in a better children's clothing store. He wanted to buy me a winter coat, but he wanted to buy me a brown teddy bear coat. It was made by White Stag. You may recognize that name. So back in the day, at least that day, that was a nice label, right? That was a great brand and it was a big deal because I can remember my mom having White Stag coats, I believe, but I'd never had anything. And I'm sure at 7, I didn't know. Didn't know what I didn't know, but I knew I did not want a brown coat. I wanted the navy blue one. They both had gold buttons with the stag, the white stag, basically a Christmas reindeer, if you need an image, embossed on it. And we stood there for the longest time, so much that my mom told me later, she was like, I thought he was probably going to leave us. She's like, why didn't you just take the coat? She's just going to want to give us back and wonder what he got himself into. And that's my mom for you. But in the end, I got the blue coat. And it had been such a family memory that I had that coat until my last move just now. So literally it was in a plastic bag. It had hung in my closet since my mom had moved 3 times. And then finally the last time she didn't have the space to move it. So I either got it or I got to take it, choosing if I'm keeping it or we're finally going to dump it. And so I kept it for a little while and thought, wow, what a memory. And this thing is, now 52 years old. And I still am lugging this thing around. I don't know why, but it is a good story. At this point, I'm a little sorry I don't have it just to hang in the background. But somehow in moving from Scottsdale to Phoenix, I thought this can go. But that was my first big memory with clothing and really taking a stand for what I want and what I don't absolutely want. However, to my stepdad in heaven, I owe an apology because I now know that brown would have been a better color for me. My guest today is a very different diversion from the norm of talking about weight training or strength training or muscle or bone density. However, it's no less important to potentially your motivation to do some of those things, to feel the energy and to feel confident, which I think much of our exercise and exercise choices are about making us feel. So some of you know, some of you don't. We've had this discussion because with some of the newer images that I've shared, either that are appearing on our website from the recent photo shoot, many of you have shared, this was really great, or a certain dress or outfit you really liked, but not that you complimented the outfit, but you complimented me, that it looked good on me. And the difference is Jennifer Butler. So I have had my quote unquote colors done, but Jennifer is so much more than that. And I think you'll get the idea. This is video where most of our podcasts are audio only. Now, you may be listening somewhere else in another platform where we're not displaying video, but if you want to watch it, you can watch that on our YouTube channel at Flipping50 TV. Jennifer Butler is the leading expert in sociology of style and color. Her experience lies in the art of visual communication, understanding that mastery of appearance is critical to effective communication. Building on her fashion expertise, knowledge of human nature, and understanding of color, she develops style and color palettes that reveal the essence of an individual's personality. Through her work, Jennifer helps clients to powerfully, authentically, and effectively express themselves. Can't wait for you to dive in and meet my good friend, Jennifer Butler. Jennifer Butler, thank you so very much for being here.
Thank you.
You are just a vivid picture, and we do this so rarely. I'm hoping all of my listeners and today, viewers, watchers, understand that there is a reason why we're doing this, and it is so very important. And I'll tell you the real truth behind audio only. First of all, it allows me to do podcasts in my pajamas. That's always a benefit. And nobody has to know that I've just come in the door from a run and I'm literally glowing, glistening, or otherwise people say sweating. But here today, it's very important to me that you actually see in motion what's happening. So Jennifer, before we dive into literally what we're talking about and addressing, what I would love to know is how did you get started? How did you start doing color for other people and realizing the power in it for them?
Well, I was living in New York and I got a phone call. It was about 8 o'clock at night after work. And the person said, I think you have some ties with the fashion industry. And I said, well, yes, I have a few. And we said, the Hunger Project is giving a major symposium and we need to dress the moderator. And it's setting the whole tone of the event. And so when she arrived in New York, she had this beautiful color fan. And when I saw the fan, what I saw was her. And usually when people wear colors, they have an image they're presenting, but I had more access to what I call her authenticity. And it was fascinating. I thought, wow, I better learn this. I'm in fashion. And so that led me on a journey. Actually ended up living in a spiritual ashram in Santa Monica in the early 80s and finally found my master teacher who created the whole thing. Her name was Suzanne Cagill. And then, of course, they did a mass marketing of the Four Seasons, and Suzanne took her information away from the market because she felt it was really a journey to authenticity. And this, in a way, the love story is that Mother Nature has given us this invitation to be ourselves. And she's given us all the keys through Mother Nature. And yet we have the choice, right? So if I'm with self-doubt, I think something's going to look better outside myself, right? If I don't trust myself, I'm going to look at a magazine for the answer instead of looking at me and knowing that I'm whole and complete exactly the way I am. So that's why it's really empowering. And I feel like a strong ally with you because we're really supporting women's health.
So very true. And gosh, wow, did that resonate with me and made me really, I felt that like on a visceral level, because I think that's so true that, looking for what is my voice and what is the voice that I've got as I'm talking to our listeners right now. And is it based in me, what I know to be right for them, or am I following other people and maybe trying to assume someone else's voice? And there's just such a huge difference in being one versus the other. So let's talk a little bit, and spoiler alert for everybody. And many of my listeners, watchers, or people who are on social media with me have already commented when I had a recent photo shoot and started using those photos. Of course, you were dressing me, right? You literally were, helping pick my palette, and everyone comments. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people comment on whoever took your pictures nailed it. But I think what they really meant is, what you're wearing and the way that is representing you is just so good. It's just so authentic. And when I look at what I had done the year before versus this past fall, world of difference in real, fake, authentic, just, looking like someone else. So let's talk about that, and we'll share a little bit about my palette. But how is it that you end up nailing it for someone and really coming up with their palette?
Well, I want to talk about something that's very important. It's kind of what we're brought up with. So
Mm.
as a little girl, my mother would say, well, why don't you, buy what you're attracted to? And then after I had my colors done, I thought, well, I wasn't attracted to any of these. I'll show you my palette. This wasn't what I was attracted to originally at all. I mean, it's what I'm wearing now. And I had 10 years in the fashion industry. I was trained at Bloomingdale's. But I realized that everything I had in my closet was opposite of me because I was buying what I was attracted to, which is the opposite of me. And
Wow.
so there's, I think, a learning in a way for all of humanity of, in a way, the question is, what does it take to be true to myself? How can I fall in love with myself every day all over again throughout my life? And how can I'm already created. Here I am, right? How can I mirror my own coloring so I feel at home with myself?
Mm.
So the color palette, I'm trained to, first of all, paint all of this. And we start with the hair, skin, and eyes. So here's my hair.
Mm.
This is my skin tone, which is intimacy. And my eyes is the mirror of the soul. So I have the foundation of my life,
Mm.
right? The mirror of my soul, and intimacy, self-love, and fellowship. So that is what we call a sacred triad. So for you, we have
Mhm.
your beautiful brown chestnut hair,
Mhm.
your rose skin tone, and then your beautiful kind of tourmaline, sort of dusty teal for your eyes, right?
Mhm. I've got my fan. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so that's the core. And then all the colors emanate from there. And the reason these particular palettes are so important is we use harmonics that already exist in Mother Nature. And so the sacred triad is the beginning of that. And,
Beautiful.
and when the class, I teach a painting class, I can start with my skin tone by using my eyes and my hair. I will get, with paints, I will get to that color. So that's how really consistent and congruent we are if we only look in the right direction, which is, of course, at ourselves.
Mm.
So let's talk about what you're wearing. You're wearing the eye color,
Yeah.
which is very centering. I'm wearing the purple, which is my support, with a power color. So I'm
Mhm.
wearing these two together. I'm what's
Beautiful.
called a vivid winter, and yet my palette is what we call more spring and autumn. So the colors are done individually, which is really important because I'm only seen through my coloring, right? I
Mm.
don't show up as a human being without my pigment. So that's really where the science of humanity is. And then I do want to show you my vision boards. So I'll hold them up to me and you'll see only one will match. But we begin with spring, which is new beginnings. And this is in a way how you are dressed. You want to show some of your colors
Yeah.
that you have there. So
Yeah.
this is how you were dressed before.
Yeah. Here's me before the very pink dress, the bright pink, almost neon. I don't know what I was thinking. Right. And then really
The
bright
green.
green. So
Yep.
yeah, I was drawn to all of those, just super brights and no longer.
So let's look at where you ended up. So
Mhm.
you ended up here. So this is the comparison.
Mm.
So this is how you were dressed before, and this is how you ended up.
Mhm.
And you can see this is really too dull on me. I tried autumn for a while, which doesn't go with me.
Mm.
So it disconnects. And you'll watch my face now. This is where the connection is. See, I show up here, but I dressed all the seasons. I think that's why the goddess decided that I could do this work. I needed a lot of help. I was what we call it's called a sublimated personality. So because I didn't trust myself, I grew up with 5 brothers as an only girl, and I didn't trust who I was, right? I didn't know to be this was way too strong in my family. So,
Mm.
and my mother, I tried to be her. As you can see, this is very confusing. And I'm over here.
Ooh.
So I want to say something also about our mothers, because, we're taught as young girls to pattern ourselves after them.
Mm.
My mother was the opposite of me. I was actually the archetype of my father, and yet he had 5 boys, going after his design and his elements. So I was very mixed up until I had my colors done. Then all of a sudden, oh, okay, this is who I am. I can trust this. This is what I can dress. It may feel a little bit much, which it did for a while. It felt like I was kind of very kind of out there. And we have to have this comfort of being willing to be seen, right? That's the other part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Am I willing to be seen and really trust my authentic beauty? So that's, it's more, I would say, if I looked at where the knowledge came from, it would have been from the ancient temples of Egypt, right? Because they understood vibrational energy.
And now we
And
are just coming full circle to actually talk about that in mainstream. It's so
yes,
interesting.
well, in a way, when you're teaching us about health and vitality and exercise,
Mm-hmm.
you're keeping our life force alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing that with color, knowing
Yeah.
that it's not about image or fashion. I mean, we can talk about that. We certainly go out and go shopping, and I do wardrobing, and all of that's part of it. But it's more from a place of who the person really is.
What happens when someone like me wears colors that really are not in their best presentation or representation of themselves, not authentic?
I feel, what, for me, I had a lot of self doubt. And I was always trying to find a way to look good. So I always felt the answers were either beyond me or outside myself. So when I had my palette done, it was a homecoming. I felt other people could trust me, that my word had meaning, right? Because I
Mhm.
was living my truth.
Mm.
So it was a very big switch for me.
Hmm. And I would have to say, to echo that, so I often would wear that pink dress. I would wear that at meetings, like mastermind meetings where I was networking, or I would wear it on stage. I believe I wore that to my son's college graduation. And what I remember from wearing that, and of course I didn't know any better, to, fast forward a couple of years later, having a deeper, darker, kind of a burgundy dress that I tend to wear instead, was that I just felt, like you said, at home and kind of in my body, not outside my body. It wasn't like I was wanting people to look at me for what I wore. It was like I was wanting people to see me.
Yeah. And I think it's a different access of being, right?
Hmm.
So when I'm being myself, then you have access to your being and you have access to being yourself. So there's just this beautiful dance.
Hmm.
When I get all the women together, we do a clothing exchange. Nobody's trying to compete with everybody. We're just trying to be the best version of ourselves. Um, and I would also put this in this body of knowledge is not only a healing art, but it's really about learning to authentically communicate. So Virginia Satir, who created family therapy, was a very strong ally of my teacher, because she said in the family structure, instead of having confusion, right? See, these are my colors, so I don't need to wear my mother's pink or my father's olive, which I was wearing before. I wear this. This is my foundation. This is the color in my bedroom, the screen behind me,
Hmm.
right? Everything is mirroring me, so it's a nourishing myself, so I can go out in the world and really contribute what I need to, because I don't have the attention. I am whole and complete as a
Mm.
human being in my own coloring, and I can take a stand for myself and what I believe in, and that creates a credibility. So if you go to my website, it's these colors, right?
Yeah.
My home is in
Mm-hmm.
these colors. And when people come here, there's a sense of comfort and accessibility that I don't think I would have had before.
Well, and I'm distracted because you have the most beautiful eyes. So I just want to make sure I get that in there.
Thank you.
But I would also love for you to describe what you call, and I'm still learning this concept, sacred geometry. What
Okay.
what does that
Well,
mean?
yeah. So we recognize, if you look at the Michelangelo paintings, right, and the
Mhm,
Sistine Chapel, I mean, there's
mhm.
a harmonic, and they have all these drawings about the geometry. So it just doesn't belong to Mother Nature; it belongs to us. So if you notice, the neckline you have is a deeper neckline, and you have a
Mhm,
longer face.
mhm,
So the shape of the face determines the neckline, and the shape of your facial features help determine your accessories. So the width of this pendant, right, is mirroring the width of my face.
mm,
Yep. So I have a more square jawline.
mhm.
If
Yep.
I tried to wear a long pendant like you need, it would drag my face down. So we look at the proportion of the face for your height. We look at your facial features. A lot of people like to wear prints or they're decorating their home. The animal print here, I was looking at it, like how it's mirroring the shape of my eyes,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So it's sort of like, you know, sharing that we have everything we really need. It's just being, it's sort of like we're this divine experiment. So, what if I dress this way? And, for me, I get dressed up every day. I go to the farmer's market. Everybody remembers me. They now know me as, oh, you're the woman that does the colors. Yes, I am. Right. Because I want to have a life story
Yeah.
that's beautiful. And so I dress up for myself. That's the other
Mm.
thing important. We have so many ways in this culture where we don't really have to care about that anymore. And yet, from another place of our life force, that's what I get dressed up for, is how do I support my life force? I could be going to yoga or an art museum or a movie with friends, and I'm always putting something special on. I always plan my weekends. These are my weekend activities. How do I want to show up for myself and others?
I love that. I
Yeah.
really also encourage all of our listeners and viewers that, you may be exercising at home. Maybe you're not going to the gym. So many of my flipping 50 students or followers are. However, I do think that what you're wearing matters to you. And
Yes.
it brings your own energy up if you feel good in what you're wearing, and not just the way it fits. I'm talking about the color. And really, for better form, you really do want to be looking in the mirror occasionally and checking that. So you're going to get that feedback. So, I'm in the habit of doing this when I find a brand who it seems to be very seasonal, but occasionally they will, have something come out and it's in colors. I will just buy multiples. Like, okay, I'm just doing this because then I'll have them for a very long time.
Yes.
And it's like, I know this fits and these are my colors. So I'm all over it. And you just heard Jennifer, right? She actually told me, I want it for the record, she told me to go shopping for jewelry just so that we have that for documentation. Talk about trending styles a little bit. How do we deal with that? Because I think sometimes we do like to indulge and be, trending, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we're always ourselves,
Mhm.
right? And see, out of self love, I have made this agreement. I don't want to buy anything that's not me. So, first of
Mm.
all, we have to understand that clothing is this direct expression of our essence and of ourself. So,
Mm.
I have a different level of commitment. Like, clothes matter in a very different way, in a way I hadn't had regard for before I had my colors done. And so, because I know that it's about my life force, I stay committed to what works for me. I know my silhouette is a hourglass. I understand the shape of my face. I understand visual weight if I'm buying a pair of eyeglasses. I understand what is the textural range, how much design I can wear. So there's it's a different level of tools that I have for making choices. So it's beyond trend. I have my personal style that I'm committed to first.
Mm-hmm.
And then if something on trend works for me, then I choose it.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. How is authentic beauty really ageless? Because we are talking to a group of women who feels like potentially all the rules have changed recently,
Yes.
and they
Right.
may not feel like themselves, at
Yeah.
this moment, like where did I go? And so much about life is changing. Address that, please.
Well, first of all, I'm 75, right? And I've never felt better or younger. So I
Mm.
just want to have that said for the record. Um, so I would say, in terms of authentic beauty, is that the question? Say that a question again for me.
How would that apply to like women in this midlife transition who,
Okay, this is what I want to say.
yeah.
So your colors and your life force are a direct access to the goddess and to spirit. So when I talked about the springs being the sunlight, that's their access to their aliveness.
Mhm.
For you, it's the twilight. For the autumn, it's fire. And for the winter, it's moon. So when I use that higher power as my access point, that's what supports ageless beauty, is the
Mhm.
human spirit. That's why it's ageless, because that's what we recognize in
Mm.
each other, right? We play music, we dance, we move, right? That's all accessing this higher power. So when I know that my colors are doing that, that becomes really important to me.
What happens when we age? If yeah, I mean, we know skin changes, skin thins. Do we lose or change in terms of our pigment? Do we, if we've
Mm-hmm.
had our colors done, do we need to at some point have them done again?
Yes, I just redid someone. She started probably about maybe 10 years ago with very natural blonde hair. And
Hmm.
so now her hair is more of a silvery blonde, right? So I had to change a lot of the colors. So especially the
Hmm.
hair, skin, and eyes all grow together in wisdom, right?
Hmm.
So my skin tone got richer, my hair got lighter, my eyes pretty much stayed the same. That isn't true for everybody. Sometimes the eyes are more green when I redo the palette. Sometimes they're more blue. It's sort of like if we are studying French, and we live in France, we're going to have a different absorption rate. So the more you embody your colors, the more you grow into a new dimension of them. And
Mm.
sometimes it's softer. We don't know what's happening for you. It's your personal documentary, we say.
Hmm.
Um, right. So I thought with my hair going really white that I'd wear more pastels, but because I'm a vivid winter, the pastels oftentimes right now aren't really strong enough for me
Mm.
because my skin tone got richer. So it's a fascinating
Hmm.
study, really, of humanity and our growth as human beings, right? We're spiraling upward in evolution,
Hmm.
and we're spiraling upward in consciousness. So the consciousness now for authentic beauty is this agreement. I already chose what I look like before I showed up here. And the learning is, as a spring, my greatest fear is that I'm going to not be taken seriously. As a summer, my greatest fear is that I'm the vulnerability of my femininity. The greatest fear for autumn is, oh, I'm going to come on too strong. And the greatest fear for winter is I'm going to be too distant.
Hmm.
So out of that fear, we dress another season. In my case, I dressed all of them because that's what I had access to in the fashion industry. So I was a little bit of a lost soul. And I felt the colors really saved my life.
So you mentioned you were 75. How old were you when you had your colors done the first time?
It would have been in the early 80s when it first came out. And I had it done about 10 times before I met Suzanne,
Mm.
because there's many theories that you're either warm or cool. I'm both. And there's many theories that you can wear every color. It's a matter of intensity or value. And yet there's only one Jennifer Abbey Butler, right? So I've got to be very specifically defined in my own coloring. And that was Suzanne's gift. She started, I would say, in the 1940s with this body of knowledge.
I think probably for women it's much more complicated, but I do want to ask this because I know there are a lot of people thinking about this for their partners. Does this also apply to men?
Oh my God, the man! I just did a man yesterday. Um, it was
That
his
sounded wrong. I'm
right.
just
It was
going to
his
say.
wedding gift, and he came in. And he said, "No, I don't know about this. I'm kind of here. My sweetheart paid for it. I'm not going to do you any favors, Jennifer. Right?" And by the end, he said, "Ah, wow, there's something to this." So men love it from a different place. I think for them, it's personal power. But a
Mhm,
lot of our men love design and beauty. And
mhm,
I have to say, it's such a beautiful way to share life,
mhm.
right? You
So true.
understand your family, your friends.
So talk about the difference that this might make in relationships. Just I mean whether you do, not necessarily other people, but how are we each relating differently to people when we're wearing what helps us find our authenticity?
I think, from all the stories people have told me in these 40 years, I would say they stopped trying to change their partner.
Wow.
Right? They have such greater understanding of the similarities, the differences. My summers move at a different pace. For you, you're more process oriented. For me, I have black and white discernment, right? So in a friendship, if we were going shopping, for example, I would have to understand your process of understanding. And yet you might count on me for a black and white decision at some point.
Mm, very cool. Oh,
Right.
I
So
love
just
that. Yeah.
knowing the fundamental way that Mother Nature is leading us through life. In spring, it's creation. In summer, it's sustaining energy. In autumn, it's the harvest. In winter, it's reflection. So I'm that part of the life cycle. And it helps me call forth my friends, right, for different aspects. We just had a reunion, right? And everybody was a different season, and 8 of us women. They called me J Ma because I'm sort of the mother of the group, and my friend is D Ma. She's the other one that's the mother. But just to see how the girls had progressed, how they were with each other. I took everybody shopping at this flea market, right?
Mhm.
How they supported each other to find things. They say, "Oh, this is you, Holly. This is you, Wendy Sue." And where they were willing to experiment. I always put them in things that are a little more outrageous,
Mhm.
because then they might not buy that, but they'll buy something that's they wouldn't have
Oh,
bought before,
second. Yeah.
right?
You're tricky.
I know,
Okay.
right?
So not only that, we need you probably first before you try therapy. All right. Just saying couples therapy may not be it. Jennifer might be it.
I know, right?
Far more fun, right? I have a question though. How does that couple then decorate their house?
They see usually what colors merge. We always give the bedroom to the woman, right? That's her domain.
Of course.
And I encourage, we look at the skin tone. Sometimes we look at the romantic or both together. And then usually some of the guys like to entertain. They want to decorate the living room, or they like the kitchen because they like to cook. But it's fascinating to see where the colors emerge, even though you're different seasons. So let's say you meet an autumn man, right? But you both can merge with teal or the green family or your hair color, for example. Usually when I talk about decorating, I invite everybody to sit in each room. And the question is, how would you like to feel in this room?
Mm.
Right. So if you want to feel more related, okay, let's decorate with the skin tone. If you say, well, I want some drama, then you might say, well, the living room could be the dramatic colors. Oftentimes I have couples look for paintings that they might like, a rug or pillows, something that involves design that they both can relate to.
Interesting. So very good. Okay, that brings me back. I wanted to ask you. So, women who are listening may or may not be getting some assistance with their hair color. So, and I can say this for myself, this is my hair color, although I am having to help myself here at the roots. What is hair color if you're not actually following what actually is your natural? And if you went, platinum blonde because that's fun, how does that impact your color scheme? Are you just being inauthentic to yourself, or what happens?
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel we can add the color to the hair, but it's consistent. So if you're adding color to your hair, it's still consistent. You're not making your hair bright red. You're not adding blonde highlights.
Hmm.
Because when I paint the skin tone and eye color, the hair color is part of that. We encourage us to trust the natural flow of what Mother Nature has given us. If you decide to go gray, I have friends who've decided to go gray, and then they call me
Mhm.
up and they say, it just doesn't work for me. I really
Yeah.
want to dye my hair the most natural. And I say, fine. It's really, to me, a very personal journey. Both my parents had beautiful white hair. So I said, okay, 2 out of 2, I'm going to enjoy my hair.
Yeah.
So I just cut it all off and let it grow out. So I've enjoyed it. I feel like, and I've had many people with gray hair who've said, wow, I'm really glad I did this. And other people who haven't. I think it's a very personal choice that's
Mhm.
important to respect within you and the others around you. Yeah.
Beautifully said. Okay. So, Jennifer, have to ask you this is the hardest question of all today. Is there a question that, based on we're talking to women 45 to 70 who just really want to get back to, or I would rather that they were saying, I want to go ahead to, right? To who they really are. Is there a question I should have asked you while I've got you here?
I think it's the willingness to really be seen. I think that's what's key. I was working with someone recently. We were doing the wardrobing, and she had things but I put them together in a way that she was more visible.
Hmm.
And she said, wow, I think that's the question. I don't know how I know this works, but I don't know if I'm there yet. And I said, well, let's just honor that, because I think
Wow.
the sense of safety,
Hmm.
right? It's important to have a sense of safety.
Yeah.
And we talk about being, oh, well, let's be high profile and let's be visible. But when you're authentic, you're merging the physical, the emotional body with the spiritual. And this sometimes the spiritual is easier to access, and then the other aspects of ourself need to catch up. So I spent several years in spiritual psychology. So
Hmm.
it's really honoring the emotions. Like,
Hmm.
oh, I see. I'm afraid of being visible. I wonder where that came from. Did I grow up with that? I don't know. I don't know that that was in my family, but it may have been in grade school or high school. And I want to honor that part of myself. However, I do have another level of consciousness. This other level is saying it's okay to be seen. I want to, I have a website. I want to be visible. I want to get my message out in the world. So how can I honor both? So it's really where you're honoring the emotions, usually with a younger part of oneself. So my higher self might say, listen, I will take care of you. I know more now, right? I can honor you and we can still grow together. So then that other part of myself feels safer to keep moving forward.
Listeners, I hope you stuck around for that because I think that was the mic drop. It's just an interesting concept, because so many times we're hearing or seeing in the media, and I don't know how many women say this, but I do think there is a number that feel invisible at midlife or beyond. And they used to walk into a room and garner attention and maybe feel like that's not happening anymore. But I wonder how much of it is actually we don't right now want to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
And really, the important thing for me is that I see myself,
Mm,
right? See, as long as I see myself, then I'm in alignment with spirit and Mother Nature, because that's the core,
hmm
right? We want to have that core of ourselves.
hmm I so love it. This was so rich, and I am sure listeners are going to want to get more Jennifer. Where can they go to do that, learn more, and find out more about what you do?
Well, thank you for asking. You know, we have a wonderful website, jenniferbutlercolor.com, and you can take the seasonal quiz. There's lots of free videos. If you want more of a consultation, you can call
Mhm.
Leslie, and I'll
Okay.
give you that number again. It's 323-931-2626.
Okay.
And you can set up an appointment with her, an acuity call, and she'll just review things. You know, this isn't right for everybody, and I totally understand that. But I wanted to have a willingness to really merge with you health and beauty, and
Mm.
really encourage women that really, I think life is this journey to authenticity.
So amazing. So amazing. Such an amazing woman. And I cannot tell you how much, my arsenal of colors here has meant so much to me and how my closet is so much less complicated. And now I walk in and there is never a day when I don't have anything to wear. There are almost everything is some choice. So, listeners, you can leave comments or questions below the show notes. And I'd love to know if you've had a similar experience or you've had a, come to Jesus meeting with your closet and realize it's time to regroup. You can go to show notes at flipping50.com/color. And what are you waiting for? Let's start flipping 50 today.